Joining us now is Trump nominee for ambassador to Israel, former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee. Governor, great to have you on the show. Donald Trump has said the United States should stay out of the conflict in Syria. He wrote on Truth Social, "This fight is not our fight." It may not be our fight, but don't we have a critical national interest in what happens there?
Well, we certainly have a critical national interest, but what we don't have is a reason to get in the middle of two warring factors, neither of which are good guys. We're not talking about there's a good side, there's a bad side. There are two bad sides here, one affiliated with al-Qaeda. The other, as you mentioned, Assad was a monster. I mean, when you use chemical weapons on your own people, including innocent civilians and children, you're not a good guy. So the fact that he's gone, I think everybody can celebrate that. But we don't know much about this new group, except that they're tied to terrorism, and there's no reason to think that they're suddenly going to become John Wayne leading the Westerns to some great thing.
Yeah.
You said something that was so very applicable, Elizabeth, when you said, you know, meet the new boss, same as the old boss, to quote the Who song. Absolutely spot on perfect.
Okay, I didn't have the governor Mike Huckabee quoting the Who on my bingo card. But, you know, you raise a good point. This rebel group, HTS, which is now in charge in Syria, is on the U.S. terror watch list. The leader of that group has an American bounty of $10 million on his head. He says he's reformed. He's promising we're not going to trample women as the Taliban in Afghanistan did after they promised to respect women, and now they are definitely not. In other words, how much do you trust him? How worried are you that the Taliban in Afghanistan is celebrating? How much do you think they'll do the same thing that the Taliban did, promise one thing and do another?
Israel's doing the right thing. They're not listening to what they say. They're watching to see what they do. And what Israel is doing is protecting its borders. They've been fighting a seven-front war. They've had attacks from the north, the south, from the Iranians themselves, from the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas. It's come from everywhere. So what they can't do is allow this new force to get a foothold on the Golan Heights. And they have no interest in going into Damascus. There's nothing there for them. So they do have a right and really an obligation. And I want to commend the Biden administration for acknowledging that today, saying that Israel has a right to defend itself, that the moves they're making are the right ones for that defense. And then let's see how just how noble this new leadership is going to be.
So how concerned are you that these chemical weapons in Syria might fall into the hands of these rebels?
Very concerned. We all should be. And it's another reason that we should thank Israel for going in and trying to destroy those chemical weapons, because I don't care who's in charge of Syria, nobody needs to have their hands near chemical weapons. They need to be destroyed. And if Israel doesn't do it, then the rest of the world should come in and do it as well, because there's just no place in a civilized society for that kind of weaponry. The U.S. got rid of its chemical weapons years ago, destroyed them. Most of the world recognizes there's just no room in a civilization for that.
I'm just curious, Governor, you said a moment ago, you were talking about Assad gassing his own people. Trump's nominee for DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, is on Capitol Hill today trying to get Republican senatorial support for her nomination. She went to Syria, visited with Assad, and came back and said she wasn't sure that Assad did gas his own people. Are you positive that he did, as our intelligence community is positive that he did, and most of the international world is positive that he did? And are you concerned that somebody like Tulsi Gabbard, who's casting doubt on that, might be elevated to a position as important as director of the DNI?
I'm not concerned about Tulsi in that position. She served this country honorably in combat. I don't think there's any doubt about her allegiance, her objectivity. What she believes she saw and heard, that's something that she'll answer for in the Senate hearings, and I think she'll do fine, and I think she'll be great at the DNI. What we all need to be concerned about is that no one gets their hands on that weaponry that Assad, if he didn't use it, which every reason is that he did, and every evidence is that he did, it was used in Syria on civilians, and he was in charge of Syria.
Yeah.
That's the conclusion I think most of us would draw.
Well, the intelligence community has said with high confidence that Assad gassed his own people. Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.